If you'll take your Bibles and turn to 2 Samuel chapter 12. Throughout time, people hear a lot of sermons about David's sin with Bathsheba. You know, we're pretty familiar with that story in the Bible, that picture. Today I want to address their story, but I want to focus on what Nathan did, not on what David and Bathsheba did. In a nutshell, I'm going to give you what David did, just in case you're not familiar with the story of David and Bathsheba. I'm going to give it to you, just the highlights. We're just going to hit the highlights here. He lusted after another man's wife, committed adultery with her. He got her pregnant, had her husband killed, and then he married her. There you go. That's in a nutshell. That's what David did. It's not a good story. David made a terrible move, and then he followed it with a terrible move, and then if that wasn't enough, he backed it up with a terrible move, and then to put the icing on the cake, did a terrible move. It's a terrible story. After David and Bathsheba took that leap together, and by the way, they did it together. A lot of times when people are really hard on David, but not so much on Bathsheba, Bathsheba made the call also. They did this thing together. But after David and Bathsheba took that leap together, God went over and he had a meeting with his prophet Nathan. By the way, don't ever think you're going to do something and God's not going to catch you. He's known for being all-knowing. He does see everything. He does know what's going on. God saw what David and Bathsheba did, and he decided to have a meeting with Nathan. Nathan's a prophet. He gets informed about everything David did, and then he prepares a speech for David. If you're familiar with this story, Nathan's genius with what he does here. He's not just a guy that says, okay, I've got a message from the Lord and I'm going to deliver the message. He's really creative with his message. He doesn't just say, okay, I'm just going to tell you, hey, God caught you. He knows what you did. You were in the wrong. No, Nathan's, I like the person Nathan in the Bible. He has a little flair to the way he does, he presents the stories. David did not only hold the position of the king at this time, the king also held the position of judge. So people would come into the courtroom and they would line up, usually along the wall, and the king would have a scepter, if that's what David had, but that's known at that time, and he would point the scepter at the person who would come and present their case to the king, who was also the judge. That's why in the book of Esther, you know, if he doesn't point the scepter, you don't approach the throne if the king doesn't point the scepter out. And that was a kind of a risk that Esther took. That's the setting that we're in here with David. He's the judge and he's the king. Anyone who had a legal issue that needed to be resolved would bring their issue before the king, and he would decide the outcome because he was also the judge. It wasn't two different jobs. He would just switch hats. He would judge the people also. This is the role that David is operating in when Nathan approaches him with a very interesting case. Nathan comes into the courtroom. He sees David there. Now, it doesn't say that David called him or anything. It just says Nathan just went up. You don't do that, but Nathan apparently, he's got a little bit of immutability. And he walks right up to David and says, hey, I've got a case I need to tell you about. And it's an interesting case. Look at 2 Samuel chapter 12 and verse 1. It says, then the Lord sent Nathan to David, and he came to him and said to him, there were two men in one city, one rich and the other poor. Now, this is a genius move that Nathan does here. He's absolutely genius. So many times people automatically go on the defensive when you address the problems that they have in their life. I don't know about you, but if somebody comes up and says, hey, you got a problem, and we're going to talk about it, I'm like, whoa. Now you have a problem. You know, we automatically go to the defensive when people just approach us about our problems. So Nathan decides to speak to David about his sin, but he does it in such a way that David is completely open to listening to him. After all, he is here to hear what people have to say, right? That's what David's doing. He's listening to the cases of the people. So Nathan comes up and presents a case. He says there were two men in one city, one rich and the other one poor. The two men that Nathan just mentioned in the story were David and Uriah, Bathsheba's now dead husband. Those were the two men he's talking about. David's the rich man. He can have anything he wants. He's the king. And Uriah is the poor man who just had what he had. That's what he had. Nathan opens his case with an extreme contrast, and he has David's attention. Hey, there was one, in the same place, there was a rich man and there was a poor man. So now his attention's turned to what Nathan has to say. Look at verse 2 of 2 Samuel 12. The rich man had exceedingly many flocks and herds, but the poor man had nothing except one little ewe lamb, which he had bought and nourished. And it grew up together with him and with his children. It ate of his own food and drank from his own cup and lay in his bosom, and it was like a daughter to him. The contrast continues here. The rich man has many flocks. The poor man only has one ewe lamb. Poor guy's got one lamb. Rich guy's got endless sheep. He can have whatever he wants here. This is where the parable gets really weird for our Western ears. I don't know if you caught it, but looking at those verses like that, okay, that's a little weird. Our Western culture looks at these verses and goes, something's wrong with that. The man nourished this lamb, and it even drank from his own cup. How often do you see that going on? It laid in his bosom and was like a daughter to him. Before we get really weirded out over this, let me explain what's going on here. Because for our Western ears, we listen to that. Okay, well, something else going on here too. There's an elephant in the room. No, it's it's okay. It's okay. Just for our Western ears, it doesn't sound right. These are expressions of closeness. That's what these expressions are. They're expressions of closeness. A cupbearer would drink from a king's cup before the king would get that cup, and to find out that it's poison, if it's poisoned or not. The cupbearer was there to taste the food or drink from the cup before it went to the king to make sure the king wasn't going to die. If the cupbearer falls, that's not a good drink. So way to go on getting that job. You got promoted to cupbearer. So that was his job. The cupbearer would be the person who the king considered close and loyal to him. You're not going to just pick some random person to be the cupbearer. You're going to pick somebody close to you. This is a picture of friendship. That's what this expression is. It's a picture of friendship. To rest on someone's bosom is an expression of tenderness and love. We see the same thing with the disciple John in the New Testament at the upper room with Jesus. It's just a picture of closeness and nearness. There's a relationship here. Nathan's point here is that the lamb was adored by the family. This is their pet. This isn't food. This is their pet. They cherished this lamb. They loved this lamb. Then the crime is introduced. Look at verse 4. And a traveler came to the rich man who refused to take from his own flock and from his own herd to prepare one for the wayfaring man who had come to him. But he took the poor man's lamb and prepared it for the man who had come to him. The rich man had many flocks. He had everything he needed. He had many flocks. But instead of killing one of his own sheep, he took the poor man's lamb and fed it to the traveler that came through. We all get the negativity of the story. Immediately, why would you do that? You had all these sheep and you went next door and took their pet and killed it to feed the traveler that came through. Now, David was a godly man, but he had allowed sin to have its way in his life. That's where David is. Sin was the traveler that walked into his life. Nathan's doing a really good job of throwing a parable out here. David doesn't know it's a parable. He just thinks it's a case. Sin was the traveler that walked into his life. And to make sin feel welcome, he took Uriah's most cherished family member. Sin walked into your life, David, and you went next door. You were the king. You could have anything you wanted to, but you went next door and took that man's wife. Now, David doesn't know that this story's about him. This is where Nathan's really clever. David is listening to the story the way we just heard the story. There was a rich man, had plenty of sheep. There was a poor man who had a pet. The family loved the one sheep they had. The rich man had a traveler come through, and to honor that traveler, the rich man took a sheep, but it wasn't his, it was the poor man's sheep, and he fed it to the traveler. Now, David hears the story just like that. When Nathan tells him that the rich man took the poor man's lamb, he was furious. David is really mad. Just the way we felt about the story is the way David felt. Why would you do that? Why in the world would you do that? David immediately recognizes the wrong that's done. And he sentences his sentence to the rich man in the story tells us how angry David really was. David is really mad. Look at verse 5. So David's anger was greatly aroused against the man, and he said to Nathan, "As the Lord lives, the man who has done this shall surely die, and he shall restore fourfold for the lamb, because he did this thing and because he had no pity." David just sentenced the guy. What that rich man did was wrong. By the way, he's going to die. Okay, David's mad. Yeah, he's going to die. He's going to pay fourfold, and then he's going to die. He's going to die. David trusted Nathan. He doesn't even have to get the other side of the story. He trusts Nathan. This is what you said happened. I believe you. I don't even need to hear the rich man's case. The rich man's going to die. Nathan just revealed the crime, and David lost it. He lost it. How could someone be so self-absorbed to do something like this? You had anything you wanted and you took your neighbor's pet. How could anybody be so self-absorbed? The rich man could have killed one of his own sheep and never even felt the loss. You could have killed one of your own sheep. You wouldn't even have missed your sheep. Why did you take another person's sheep when you could have taken it from your own flock and you wouldn't have even missed it? Why did you take the poor man's lamb? That's the question going through David's mind, and says, nah, kill him. Kill the guy. Like, wow. That tells you how he really feels about this. David feels so strongly about it that he just sentenced the man to death. This is where Nathan performs one of the gutsiest moves in the Bible. I like Nathan. I wouldn't want to be Nathan, but I do like Nathan. He stands up and does something amazing here. David has the power to sentence you to death. I mean, after all, he just did it. He just sentenced a man to death. So Nathan knows that he could have me killed here. But Nathan's there to help David. That's his whole purpose of showing up. That's why he came. He wanted to help David. Death is not something that Nathan's concerned about at the moment. David's furious over the actions of the rich man in Nathan's story. Then Nathan presents his closing arguments on the case. Gutsy move. Really gutsy move here. Look at 2 Samuel 12 and verse 7. Then Nathan said to David, "You are the man. Thus says the Lord God of Israel, I anointed you king over Israel, and I delivered you from the hand of Saul. I gave you your master's house and your master's wives into your keeping, and gave you the house of Israel and Judah. And if that had been too little, I also would have given you much more. Why have you despised the command of the Lord to do this evil in his sight? You have killed Uriah the Hittite with the sword. You have taken his wife to be your wife, and have killed him with the sword of the people of Ammon." I really wonder what David's expression was at that moment. You're the rich man, David. Do what? You're the rich man. He thought he'd kept his actions a secret. David thought he did pretty good. One sin covered up with another sin and covered up with another sin, and keep it going, and he thinks we're in the clear now. Everything's good. He thought he kept it a secret, and then Nathan just exposed everything to him. Everything. David, you allowed some temptation to come in. The traveler came through, and you allowed him to come in. Sin was the traveler that came to your door, David. It sought your allegiance, and you honored it by submitting to it. It told you to take the leap. Jump. It'll be okay. Just jump. That's what sin does. It's all right. Just take the leap. Jump. Everything's going to be all right. Just jump. Why did you take the leap, David? Why did you jump? That's Nathan's whole message here. Why did you jump? Why did you take that leap? David has just been caught in midair. There's all the evidence is there. You jumped. He's been caught in midair here. He did jump. He did yield to temptation. He absolutely did. He did commit adultery. He did kill his friend. He did take Uriah's wife. He did take that jump. He took that leap. Nathan just exposed every action for what it was. Now it's time for David to respond. Now, David could have denied everything and had Nathan killed on the spot. Remember, he does have the power to do that. He's the king and the judge. He could say, I can't believe you accused me of that, and had Nathan killed right there. That was a risk Nathan was willing to take because he knew David could do that. But David chose to do something only a person with a sincere desire and love for God would do. He listened. Yeah, it's been revealed to me what I did. You caught me. I could have you killed. But David did love God. He truly did love God. Yes, he made a foolish decision. Yes, he covered up one sin with another sin. By the way, sin, if you cover sin with sin, it's kind of like covering a puddle with water. It's still a puddle. You can't do that. You can't cover sin up with another sin and expect it to be hidden. That's what David was trying to do. I'm just going to cover my sin up with another sin and another sin, to the point of having a friend killed, marrying his wife. That way the child that came to be was not from an adulterous situation, but from a husband and wife. He covered every sin up with another sin. And now Nathan exposes him for who he is and what he's done. David chose to listen instead of have Nathan killed. He could have done it. He knew that Nathan's story was about him, and he recognized that he's in the wrong. Immediately busted. And it's absolutely true. I did all this. But it's what he did next that sets David apart. He's such a good man. He's such a good man. Children. Anybody in here who has had children? Anybody in here who has nieces and nephews? Or if you ever were a child? Let's try to include everybody. I know some of us so long ago, but you know it happened at one time. It had to have. You were a child. Children sometimes display a special kind of special. They have this ability about them. Not all of their decisions are always the best. Okay, they're smart. We know they're smart. And sometimes it surprises us, knowing how smart they are, that they could still choose to do that. It's just amazing. If you have children, have seen children, or were a child, you may relate here. Not all of their decisions are the best. Sometimes they can, let's say, surprise us. They have the ability. They can surprise us. Why were you on the roof wearing a bed sheet like a cape? I don't know. You know. I could fly. No, you can't fly. But I had the bed sheet on. Yeah. Safest place for a bed sheet's on a bed, not a roof. Why were you wearing the bed sheet like a cape? Well, if you wouldn't have caught me, I had this brainstorm. Yeah, I was going to fly, but you just ruined it. Not all of their decisions are always the best, okay? They're not always the best. Not all of their moves seem like they were formed from a place of genius. Kids do have this potential. But one thing they all have in common, most kids at some time try the universal catch me trick. I've done it. My kids have put me into panic mode because they've done it. And you're probably familiar with it. They jump off of something high, and in midair, they cry out those two words, catch me. Now, somehow you're miraculously supposed to show up where they're about to make an impact in their life. You might be over there, they're jumping from over here, they say catch me, and you're just supposed to transport from there to here and do your job. Catch them. My kids have done that. I have turned around and they were coming at me. They were in the air. Catch me. I have no choice. I am committed deeply to this action here. I have to catch you. They were already in midair. There's only one reason they cry out for you to catch them. There's only one reason that they want you at that point. They're already in the air. Not from a place of genius, but they've already made their decision. They're already in the air. They cry out, catch me. And as a parent, you break parts of your body you didn't even know you had to get to them fast enough to catch them. That's what I did. I got there, I caught them, and like, why did you do that? Why did you jump? It was going to be fun. But it wasn't. It wasn't fun. Oh, yeah. And then what do they say after that? Do it again. Let's do it again. Because it's not all their ideas come from a place of genius. But there's one reason why they call out for you to catch them while they're in midair. There's one reason. And that reason is obvious. They've already taken the leap. They're already in the air. They don't want to end up where they're going to end up if you don't intervene. That is why they call out those two words. Catch me. I've already jumped. Now I'm going to call out these two words because that is not where I want to be. So I need you to intervene. I need you to show up. It's a cry for help. Even though they're having the time of their life, they're still crying for help, because if you said no at that point, their whole perspective would change. Catch me. No. There's only one other option. There were two. Now there's one. Yeah, you could have not jumped, but you did jump. And now that you've jumped, you're crying out for help. Why? Because I don't want to face the consequences of my decision. I don't want to end up where I'm going to end up if you don't intervene. So please catch me. It's a cry for help. This is where David found himself. This is where David's at. He could have denied everything and had David killed, but instead he showed a teachable heart. He humbles himself. That's what sets him apart from everybody else. Then God poured out grace like he does so often. Look at verse 13 of Samuel 12, or 2 Samuel 12. So David said to Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord. And Nathan said to David, the Lord also has put away your sin. You shall not die. You sentenced the rich man to death. God's grace showed up. And the rich man's going to be okay. But David right then understood, yeah, I've taken the jump. I've taken that leap. And I need God to intervene. I need him. David acknowledged that sin knocked at his door and he yielded himself to its demands. Yeah, sin showed up and I made my choice. I did what I did. He was in a place he knew he didn't belong. But he couldn't go back and undo what he did. Now that's a big problem with sin, is you can't go back and undo it. And a lot of times we're stuck in prison there. You can hold yourself there in that prison, or somebody else can hold you in that prison. But the truth is you can't go back and undo what you did. David's in that situation. I can't go back and undo what I've already done. I've already jumped. I'm already in a place of insecurity. I'm already there. I can't change it. I can't go back. I'm already in the air. He knew what was coming. Every fall has a landing. Every fall has a landing unless someone or something comes in and intervenes. Every fall has a landing. So David cries out for God's mercy and his grace to catch him. That's what David's doing in this story. Please catch me. I've already taken the leap. I've already jumped. I can't change it. Please catch me. I need your mercy and your grace to catch me. Grace is when you receive something you don't deserve. Mercy is when you don't receive something you do deserve. And David's calling out for God to send both. I've taken a pretty big leap here, and I don't need just one thing to come catch me. I need both. I need your grace and your mercy. What I deserve, I don't want to face. And what I don't deserve, I'm asking you to give it to me anyway. please catch me. In the 51st Psalm, David wrote about this event in his life. That's what this whole psalm is. He's writing about what we're reading about here. Look at Psalms 51 and verse 1. To the chief musician, a psalm of David when Nathan the prophet went to him after he had gone into Bathsheba. Have mercy upon me, O God, according to your loving kindness. According to the multitude of your tender mercies, blot out my transgressions. Catch me. Please catch me. I can't undo what I've already done. I've already taken the leap. I'm already in midair. I need your tender mercy. Please catch me. It takes an incredible person to do what David did. And he was a true man of God. David was a true man of God. When God brought his downfalls to his attention, he yielded to God rather than clinging to his sin. And a lot of us understand what we did was wrong, but we hold on to it and defend it. We defend our actions because we don't want to admit we were wrong. David, on the other hand, admits that he's wrong and he yields to God. That takes a big person. It takes a big person to do that. And I'm certain there were more than one person in that courtroom that day, because that's how it was usually set up. The people would all be standing around waiting for their case to be heard. I'm sure it wasn't just Nathan and David in there hearing about this story of the rich man and the poor man. I'm sure it was in the ears of all those people. Nathan called David out in front of God and everyone present. That would be a humbling moment. And David could have said, I cannot believe you've accused me of this, and had Nathan killed. But instead, David set the example which showed to everyone why God chose him to be king. Did he mess up royally? Absolutely. But this showed everybody why God chose him to be king. He admitted his guilt before God, he humbled himself, and he repented. Right there in front of God and everybody. I was wrong. What you accused me of is absolutely right, and I need a minute because I need to ask God to catch me. I've already jumped. I've already made the call, but I need God to catch me. Have you ever wondered why God cares so much about who you are and what you do? You ever wondered that? I've wondered that in my life. Why do you care so much about who I am and what I do? I mean, I love my kids. I absolutely love my kids. But whether they're reading a book or painting a picture doesn't really matter to me a whole lot. It doesn't really matter to me. I want them to be safe, and I want them to grow up to be good people. That's my goal. What you do today, I mean, have fun. Enjoy the day. If you want to paint, you want to read a book, I don't care. That's fine. But God has a bigger picture in mind for us than we even have for our own children. Have you ever wondered why God cares for you so much? You remember that passage? Who is man that you're mindful of us? Why do you think about us? Look at the universe and everything that it is. I mean, light years of space. And you're focused on me. Why, God, are you so focused on me? Not me as part of mankind, but me as an individual. Why do you, when I look at the wonders of everything you made, why are you mindful of me? Why do you think about me? God loves you so much. He loves you so much, but he loves everyone else so much too. It's not just you. He loves you so much, but he loves everyone else so much as well. God wants us to acknowledge when we're falling short. He wants us to cry out, catch me. If you are falling short somewhere in your life right now, you know what you are doing is wrong. You know it does not line up with the character of God. Something you've allowed to come into your life is not lining up with the character of God. Maybe it's the way you feel about somebody else, but you know it doesn't line up with the character of God. He wants you to cry out and say, catch me. I've already taken this leap. I've already done this. I already feel this way. I've already perform this action, but I need you to catch me. The reason he wants this so much is because there's so many people out there crying that same cry. There's so many people crying that same cry. When Jesus was speaking to his disciples, he laid out a picture for them that they never forgot. We're going to jump to the New Testament here. He was talking to the disciples and lays out an illustration for them, which was an incredible illustration. They'd been fishing all night and caught nothing. That's just depressing. I like to fish, but after an hour, when there's no fish, I just come to that conclusion. There's no fish, and I'm done. These guys have fished all night and caught no fish, 0. Then Jesus tells Simon Peter to cast his nets back out. After a full night of worthless effort, he tells Peter, go out and cast your nets back out. Look at his response in Luke chapter 5 and verse 5. But Simon answered and said to him, Master, we have toiled all night and caught nothing. Nevertheless, at your word, I will let down the net. Through all their efforts, they caught nothing. Nothing. What'd you catch? Net? Didn't you have that in the first place? Yeah. Good job. Good job. And you call yourself what? We're fishermen. All night long, we fished and caught 0. Nothing. No fish. But Simon Peter chose to obey Jesus even though he didn't understand. We didn't just throw a hook in the water and caught nothing, so we gave up. No, we've been working at this all night long, Jesus, and we've caught nothing. But nevertheless, at your word, we'll throw the nets back out. He decided to throw them out one more time, and this time, everything changes. Look at verse 6 of Luke chapter 5. And when they had done this, they caught a great number of fish, and their net was breaking. So they signaled to their partners in the other boat to come help them. And they came and filled both boats so that they began to sink. That's quite a turn of events. We'll try one more time. And now you've got enough fish that both boats are starting to sink. Jesus is in the middle of showing them one of the biggest visual aids of their life. They cast their nets and realized the catch was too much for them to bring in alone. We can't do this by ourselves. There's nothing we can do. We're going to the bottom. We need help here. So they cry out for help, and another boat full of disciples show up to help them bring the catch in. This is when Simon Peter began to realize who Jesus was. There's something amazing about you, something different about you. Look at verse 8 of Luke chapter 5. When Simon Peter saw it, he fell down at Jesus' knees, saying, Depart from me, for I am a sinful man, O Lord. This is the same place David was, right there. Same move David made. He recognized that his life was not as it should be. He knew the areas in his life where he was in the wrong, and he admitted it. You go ahead and leave, Jesus. I am sinful. I know I fall short. I've taken that leap. I have jumped. I'm in midair. I've made the decisions I've made in my life. You go ahead and leave because I'm a sinful man. This is where Jesus brings the application to the visual aid they just saw. Look at verse 9. For he and all who were with him were astonished at the catch of fish which they had taken. And so also were James and John, the sons of Zebedee, who were partners with Simon. And Jesus said to Simon, Do not be afraid. From now on, you will catch men. Here's the application to the visual aid they just got. Peter's response changed the whole conversation from catching fish to catching men, and I want to show you why. Jesus could have just used this miracle as another piece of evidence that Jesus was the Messiah. I am the Son of God. I could just use this miracle as evidence that I am who I said I was. We could stop right there. But Peter's response launched it into a place of learning and growing. Because of your response, I'm going to take this to the next level. We're not going to leave it as this miracle shows that I'm the Son of God. No, your response has just changed everything. Peter's answer revealed that he wanted to yield to God and clean up his life. You go ahead and leave because I'm a sinful man. I'm sinful. That's when Jesus was able to take this whole thing so much farther. Peter, the catch of fish was too big for you to draw in yourself. You needed other disciples to help you. You needed that. This is exactly what the world is like. This is exactly what it's like. There are so many people who need salvation, and we could really use all the help we could get. We need you. We need you. But it takes humility to be a follower of Christ. It takes humility. Both Peter and David realized they had jumped. They jumped into something they should have never been involved with. Yeah, we're sinners. We've made some bad choices. We've sinned. Both men humbled themselves and cried out for God's mercy and his grace to catch them. Both of them. David ended up raising one of the wisest men who ever lived, or as we know it, the wisest man who ever lived, Solomon. Peter was used to spread Christianity to the uttermost parts of the world. Those two guys. And it all started with one simple prayer. Catch me. Just catch me. I'm going in the wrong direction and I recognize that. I've taken this jump. I shouldn't have. And I need you to catch me because there is a landing coming if you don't intervene, and I'm asking you to give me mercy and grace. Just catch me. In Psalms 51, we see David's heart and desire after Nathan confronted him. Look at this, verse 10 of Psalms 51. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. Right here, right now, I recognize where I am. I recognize it. I see where I'm headed, and I've already taken that jump. Please catch me. Catch me. Both men wanted to be used by God. Both men yielded to sin. The traveler who came through, both men yielded to sin. Sin says, hey, I want you to do this. And to honor the traveler that came through, they yielded to it. They yielded to the traveler. They were on their way towards hitting rock bottom when they cried out to God to catch them. And he did it. That's the really cool part of both of these stories. God showed up and caught them. Like, I know I'm so far away from you, there's no way you're going to get here in time, but I'm going to call it out anyway. Catch me. And somehow he went from way over there to right here, and he caught them. He caught them. You asked for grace and mercy, here it is. But I gave you grace and mercy because there's a greater purpose here. The reason I wanted you to cry out, catch me, is because there's so many people out there making that same cry. They don't even know who to cry to. They don't even know what's going on. They just know they need some help. They know they're lost. They know they're heading in a bad direction. And they're crying out for somebody to catch them too. The world is full of people God loves with all his heart. Try to absorb that idea right there. The world is full of people that God loves with all of his heart. He died to save them too. It wasn't just us. He died to save them too. He wants to make you fishers of men. He wants to live his life through you to reach them. That's what he wants to do. I want to be who I am through who I created you to be, so we can reach everyone out there. We need to reach them. Maybe you've allowed other things to grab a hold of your attention. Maybe that's where you are today. You've allowed other things to sway you. Maybe sin has asked you to notice him and you have yielded to its demands. I don't know your story. I don't know what's going on in each one of our lives right now, but maybe that's where we're at. It takes a big person to admit they're wrong. It takes a big person. It takes a big person to yield to God when everyone's watching. That's tough to do. They know what you've been doing. Other people know, if they've seen it too, and suddenly just to admit that you were wrong, you were going down the wrong path, you took that leap, but you're crying out for God's grace and mercy to catch you, and you're going to turn around. It takes a big person to make that move. That's tough to do. But let me tell you something. We really do need you. We really need you. As Renew, as our church, we really do need you. As the family of God, we really need you right now. We've got a world full of people who are dying and on their way to hell. We kind of need you at the moment. We need you to show up here. God's asking us all to help reach others for Christ. He wants us all to do that. There are so many people. So what we need is more disciples to come and help us bring in the catch. We need more. Right now, I'm in a boat, and my eyes are open to the fact that we've got, close to 8 billion people on this earth now? Almost 8 billion people. It's a lot of fish. It's a lot of people. What I'm doing right now is I'm calling out and saying, hey, could we get another boatload of disciples? Can we get some help here? Because we're trying to reach them, and there's so many. There's so many. Would you please come help? Please help. If you've already jumped in a direction you should never have done, ask God to catch you. That way he can use you to help catch them. We really do need you. Right now, I'm begging you. I am begging you to take a moment with God this morning and just say, hey, God, I know you know the jump I've taken. It's already exposed to you. You've already seen it. Maybe nobody else knows, but you know where I'm at. And I've taken this leap, and right now I'm starting to think about all the people that are on there, they're dying and they're on their way to hell, and somehow my heart is starting to go out to those people. And I want to reach them for you. I really do want to reach out, but I know there's some things in my life that I need to clean up here before you can use me to do that. So I'm asking you to do one thing, God. Please catch me. I've already taken the leap, but catch me, because I want to be used to bring them to Christ. I need you to catch me so I can be a fisher of men. I can catch people and bring them in to the family of God. I'm asking you right now to be honest with yourself. Somebody's dying today. So many people are going to die today. During this service, hundreds of thousands of people have died while we have sat here this morning. That has happened on this earth in this last hour. That has happened. Somebody is about to go into eternity in the next few seconds. It's happening all the time. How are we involved with people? How are we involved with people? Can God use you to catch people? He needs disciples. So what I'm doing is saying, hey, my boat, I'm trying, but my boat's getting full. So could you bring your boat over to my boat and help me bring other people to Christ? Could you do that? Because we get one shot to live our life for Christ. Let's not blow this. We get one chance. We need disciples. We need people who will step up and say, okay, all the other things in my life don't matter. It's Christ and Christ alone, and bringing people to him. That's what I want to do. That's where I'm committed. That's what I want to be for the rest of my life. That's what I want to do. But it all starts with one little prayer. Wherever you're at right now, it starts with one prayer. Catch me. Whatever it is in my life that needs to be cleaned up, removed, anything I need to change. Right now, I need you to help me change that so you can use me to catch people. I'm begging you with all my heart this morning, take some time out with God and make that decision on your own. We need more disciples. We need people to help us reach people.